Hello friends, welcome to Banker Zone. In this session, we'll discuss the climate change sustainable development goals. Okay, so what do you mean by climate change? What are the SDG? So see, very easy, right? You might have read the term climate change in the newspapers. So see, climate change first, increased heat wave, droughts, then flood that caused by the climate change. Okay, so climate change is destroying the planet. So what do you mean by climate change? See, climate change is simply change in the climate. So what, for example, increase in the temperature, right? Increase in the sea water level, right? Increase in the rain suddenly that result into the floods. So these are natural disasters, and that are mainly due to the change in the climate. And why the climate change? Basically due to the increase of the emission. Okay, global warming, very famous. What is global warming? Rise in the temperature. Global warming means increase in the temperature. And why global warming? Why that climate change? Due to the emission of different hazardous gases. For example, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide. Okay, so you are very much aware that climate change means simply change in the climate. It may be the increase in the temperature, okay, or increase in heat wave, that is the global warming, drought or floods that are generally caused by the climate change, okay, and that is destroying basically the planet. So understand what is a climate change. Climate change means increase in temperature, increase in the droughts, or suddenly increase in the water level, sea water level, flood, right, tsunami. Okay, so these are some reason which these are some things which happen due to the climate change. Okay, so understand here, based on the current national commitment, global emission, mainly the CO2 emission, that is carbon dioxide emissions, are set to increase almost 14% on the current decade. So in 10 decade, that means in 10 years, almost in 10 year, whatever the global emission is supposed to be increased by 14%. Okay, so there is a huge increase in the emission of the carbon dioxide. As of 31st December 2021, 123 countries have reported the adoption of a national disaster risk reduction strategy. So what is the national disaster risk reduction strategy? So this is a strategy basically given by the United Nation. Okay, and in United Nation they have, in the General Assembly they have resolution about the national disaster risk reduction strategy. Okay, around 123 countries have given their report that they have adopted this strategy to reduce basically the climate change. Now see here the next 193 parties. Okay, 193 parties means here refer it is the 192 country and plus 1 considering the European Union. So total we say 193 party had also communicated their first NDC, means nationally determined contribution, first NDC to the United Nations, and 13 parties have submitted the even second NDC also. Okay, now what is NDC? NDC is nothing but the nationally determined contribution. So this is given by the United Nations. United Nations says you should follow the what is your nationally determined contribution towards the reducing the climate change, towards reducing the global warming, towards reducing the global emission of different gases. Okay, so how basically that can happen? See, government will empower the more use of the solar power projects, more use of the renewable energy, for example increase in the production of the electricity using the wind. Okay, so wind energy. So these are the way by which government promote that activity. For example, use of the e-vehicles, okay, electric vehicles, right? So these are the way by which government promote that industry, so that it will be substitute for example cars which run by the petrol, so it will release the CO2, that will be decreased. So these are the way which are included in the NDC, nationally determined contribution. See, 193 parties have submitted, plus including European Union as one party. Okay, 192 country plus European Union as one party, so 113 parties submitted, and 13 party have already submitted their second NDC also. Okay, now come to the global warming. See, to limit the global warming to 1.5 degree centigrade, scientists recommended that by 2023 global emission should be cut down by 45% with respect to 2022. Okay, so see, understand, this is important for exam point of view. See, according to scientist assumes that, see, there should be limit in the global warming. Okay, and what is the limit? The increase in the temperature should be limited to 1.5 degree. Okay, 1.5 degree. It should not be more than 1.5 degree. Okay, it should be have some limit, and to control that limit, to achieve that limit, what should we have to do? Whatever our emission, whatever our global emission, that means emission through globally. So whatever emission, that should be cut down by 45%. Okay, with respect to what? Whatever the emission in 2010, in that respect 45% we have to reduce the emission. So understand, to limit the global warming to 1.5%, scientists recommended that by 2023 you have to achieve one target, whatever the emission, that you have to reduce by 45% with respect to the level of 2010. Okay, so that you have to remember. Long-term changes in the temperature, weather patterns are referred as the climate change. So what is the climate change? Okay, 70 long-term changes in the weather pattern. For example, see, if I say when I was a smaller, or when I was a kid of say 5 or 10 year age, at that time I have observed the rain starting in the June itself. Okay, and it will end in the around September. Okay, then after October, November to January, there will be cold. Okay, so now that is somehow changing. In Kerala it is reaching on time monsoon, right? But in North India, in the middle of India, that monsoon almost end now in the end of July month. Okay, so late starting of a monsoon is one of the pattern we can see change in the weather. Okay, and that is due to the change in the weather, is nothing but the climate change. Okay, so what is the climate change? Simply it is change in the climate, and it is for the long term changes. We have observed it for a longer duration. Okay, so these you can see the changes. Simply what you have to remember here, that 14% figure you remember. Okay, now apart from that, you remember this line. This is the most important. To limit the global warming by 1.5 degree, 45% should be cut down with respect to 2010. What global emission you have to cut down. Now see here, total 17 there are SDG. Okay, 17 sustainable development goal are recognized by the United Nations in 2015. So what is SDG? See, SDG stands for Sustainable Development Goal. Means see, these are the target basically, or 17 programs that United Nations has given to the world. Okay, got it? These are the 17 total programs given by the in the name of a sustainable development goal by the United Nations to the world. Now see, there are total 17 SDG, right? These are recognized by the United Nations in 2015. Now you can see here the sustainable development goal 13th, which is of a number having 13th goal, it is about the climate change, and it is most important in exam. You can expect the question. Okay, remember 13th goal out of total 17, 13th goal is on the climate change. The official mission statement of a 13th goal is take urgent action to combat the climate change and its impacts. Okay, remember what is 13th goal? It is about the climate action. And what is this problem statement or the statement of a 13th goal? Take urgent action to combat the climate change and its impact. Okay, take urgent action to combat the climate change and its impact. Okay, that you have to remember. Now sorry, the SDG 13 has a target which should be achieved by 2030. Okay, so that is also you have to remember. SDG 30 is sustainable development goal about climate action, having statement take urgent action to combat the climate change and its impact, and that target should be achieved by 2030. Now, core element of the SDG. What are the core element of sustainable development? See, in 2015, September 2015, United Nations General Assembly announced totally 17 SDG. Okay, and along with that 17 Sustainable Development Goal. These are the targets, you can say, right? To achieve that SDG 17 goals, 169 targets have been given. Okay, and that if you follow the target, you will reach near to the your SDG. Okay, and over next 15 years, that means in 2015, 17 SDG were given. In support to that, 169 targets also given. Okay, so that you can easily achieve the SDG. Now see, that target they have spread over 15 years. So the 15 years time span is given. That means by 2030 you have to achieve that 17 SDG. And the most important is 13th, called as the climate action. Take urgent action to combat the climate change and its impact. Okay, that you have to remember. Now see, what are the 17 goals? One by one we will discuss. Okay, 17 goals are there. Okay, first is no poverty, zero hunger, good health, well-being, quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, then decent work, economic growth, then industry, innovation, infrastructure, reduce the inequality. Okay, then sustainable city and the community, then responsible consumption and the production, and 13th is about climate action. Okay, so 13th goal is what? It is about the environment. Then 14th is life below water. 15th, life on the land. 16th is peace, justice and strong institution, and 17th is partnership to achieve the goal. Okay, so these are the 17 sustainable development goal. Okay, these are the 17 sustainable development goal which were given us in September 2015 by the United Nations General Assembly. Okay, so 13 is important, you have to remember. Okay, rest you forgot, no problem, but 13th is about the climate action which you need to remember. Okay, now see, global issue and initiative. So what are the global issue and what initiative has been taken? Okay, so now see here, the United Nations has evolved as the premier forum for addressing the global issue. Okay, for example, AIDS, climate change, children education, democracy, gender equality, peace and security, assisting to the refugee of other countries, right? Then apart from that, climate change, health care, international law, okay, maintaining international peace. So these are the different initiatives that United Nations has been taken. Okay, now United Nations region specific mission is to support the economic and the social development of the human right protection in the Africa. So in this way, we can say United Nations is working globally to resolve the lot of issues. Okay, so the work of United Nations is also really, you can say, in different area, in wide area they are working, not only to alleviate the poverty, improve the quality of life. Apart from that, they are working in the climate change also by the way of a SDG. Okay, we are having SDG, and 13th is about the climate action. Now, what India has progressed in the sustainable development goal according to the Niti Aayog's SDI India index. So see, Niti Aayog has given its own index called as the SDG India index. Okay, what is Niti Aayog? National Institution for Transformation India. Okay, India is achieving the significant progress in the area of health, energy and infrastructure. So basically, Niti Aayog has given the index called as the Niti Aayog's SDG India index. Okay, and in that we can observe we are progressive in the health, energy and the infrastructure. India's total SDG score has increased from 60 to 66. 2019 it was 60, 2021 it was 66, with improvement in the clean water and sanitation, affordable clean energy. Okay, so see here, in 2019 our score was 60. It was increased by 6 to 66 in 2021. Okay, why? Due to the with improvement in the clean water sanitation in 2019 and affordable clean energy in 2021. Okay, now Kerala ranked first on the index. Okay, so there will be a question: which state ranked first according to the Niti Aayog's SDG India Index? So according to Niti Aayog SDG India Index, Kerala is the first state in the SDG India Index. Then after Himachal Pradesh, Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh and Goa. Okay, that you can remember. First you have to must remember first. Okay, climate change, sustainable development. See, the task of coordinating the SDG have been entrusted to Niti Aayog. So who are basically looking for the SDG? The task basically is given to the Niti Aayog. What about the sustainable development goal? You look into that basically, right? Government initiative like Swachh Bharat, Make in India, Skill India, Digital India, these are the key to SDG. That means by implementing that scheme, we can reach to the SDG. Okay, so now move to the next. India and the SDG 13. So what India has done? See, SDG 13 is important. So what is about the change we observed? What India has done in accordance with the climate action, that is 13th goal of SDG, climate action. So see, India is committed to 13th SDG, which is also called for the basically a climate action. India pledged to achieve the net zero emission by 2070 during the United Nations COP26 summit, which held in the Glasgow in 2021. Okay, so remember that you have to remember India has pledged that we will reduce the emission, we will reduce net emission by 2070. That means in the next long year, right, 48 years, by 2070 we will reduce the emission to zero. Okay, and that is the commitment given by India to the United Nations COP26 summit, which was held in the Glasgow, okay, in 2021 November. Okay, so that you have to remember, you at least remember net zero emission by 2070 commitment given by the India. Okay, by the year is important. Okay, by 2070. Okay, COP summit, in the COP summit. Now India has made 5 Panchamrit. What is Panchamrit? Means 5 things, right? 5 commitments basically India has made to combat the climate change. So what is that Panchamrit or 5 commitments? See, first, net emission zero by 2070, first commitment, first Panchamrit, right? Achieving 500 gigawatt non-fossil energy capacity by 2030. So in the next 10 years, okay, India will be achieving 500 watt non-fossil energy capacity. Then fulfill 50% of the energy requirement from the renewable energy sources. That should be achieved by the 2030. Okay, India will reduce the total projected carbon emission by 1 billion ton from now onwards till 2030. By 2030, India will reduce the carbon intensity of its economy less than 45%. So you can see we are having a target of a Panchamrit, that is 5 commitments, right? See, almost every commitment we are finalizing by 2030. What it means? See, 2030 is also a deadline for us to achieve the sustainable development goals. Okay, that's why we have Panchamrit that are in line with the 2030. Only the net zero emission is by the end of a 2070. So that you have to remember. At least year you must remember. Okay, Baki rest is you can see here. The next zero emission 2070, 500 gigawatt non-fossil energy 2030, right? So you can easily remember net zero emission. Then 500 gigawatt non-fossil energy generation, 50% energy will produce from the renewable energy sources. Then carbon emission will reduce by 1 billion tons. Okay, India will reduce the total projected carbon emission by 1 billion ton. 1 billion tons. By 2030, again, carbon intensity of its economy less than 45%. So these are the Panchamrits. Okay, so there may be a question that which of the following is not a Panchamrit. Okay, that type may happen. Okay, but that the most important is you have to remember this net zero emission. Okay, at the COP26 meeting, India has announced one sun, one world, one grid. Okay, one sun, one world, one grid is important, very important for your exam point of view. So remember, one sun, one world, one grid. I repeat, one sun, one world, one grid. This is the program basically which India announced during the COP26 meeting, and in the same meeting, India announced a net zero emission also by 2070 with the goal of what? Harnessing the solar energy. So there will be a question, what OSOWOG is related to what? So it is related to solar energy. It stands for what? It stands for one sun, one world, one grid. Okay, and it in the COP26 meeting that has been announced by the India. Okay, that you have to note. Now see, India has launched the Plastic Hackathon 2021 campaign to ensure that country is free of single-use plastic by 2022. So this is also important for exam point of view. Remember what India has launched. India launched a Plastic Hackathon 2021. It is a campaign basically, and the target is single-use free plastic. Okay, we have to make our India free from single-use plastic by 2021, by 2022. Okay, now it is 2023. Now see, many state has their environment policy. Many state implemented the elimination of a single-use plastic. Okay, the Sustainable Finance Group (SFG) is the Department of Regulation, that is the DOR of RBI, carried out the survey in January 2022 and to assess the status of the climate risk sustainable finance in the lending in the leading scheduled commercial banks. So see, we are the banks and we are also in the forefront to achieve the SDG. So how we can contribute? See here, the sustainable finance, there is SFG, that is called as the Sustainable Finance Group. It is where it is the Department of Regulation. It is in the Department of Regulation of RBI. In RBI there is one department called as the Department of Regulation. In that there is one group called as the Sustainable Finance Group. And that group basically has carried out a survey called as the Climate Risk and Sustainable Finance. Okay, so on that they have carried out a survey that how much that scheduled commercial banks are doing that. Okay, what means how much the scheduled commercial banks are doing finance or a loan in the field of sustainable energy sector. Okay, now see the sustainable, you see this is important for exam point of view. So note, the Sustainable Finance Group, it is the part of Department of Regulation of RBI, carried the survey to access the status of what is status of what? Climate risk and the sustainable finance in the scheduled commercial banks. Okay, what is scheduled commercial bank? See, we are all almost the government nationalized banks are the commercial banks, plus the banks which are generally you can say included in the schedule around I think schedule 32 or 34 of RBI Act is the scheduled commercial banks. Okay, so you just note it. Okay, later on I will clarify. So first you understand here only that SFG is a part of a department of the regulation of RBI and which carried out the status of the climate risk as well as the sustainable finance by the commercial banks. Now see, the RBI has released the discussion paper on the climate risk and the sustainable finance in July 2022. So survey they have conducted in January, and after 6 months in July they have released another paper. Okay, so paper is also on the same thing, climate risk and the sustainable finance. So in this way we can say even banks are now approaching to the SDG. Now see how the bank and climate change. Okay, what we can do for the climate change. See, according to the World Bank, climate change is likely to lower the India's GDP by 2.8% per year by 2050. So you see how much that climate change is impacting India also. See, climate change is also impacting the GDP of India. And according to World Bank, GDP in India will decrease by 2.8% due to the climate change. Okay, and that will be by 2050, and that this decrease will be in per year basis. Okay, so you can see how much that a climate change affect the India. Okay, that statement is important. Now about through green finance, the banking sector can help India in achieving the climate targets. So how bank can go for the climate change? Obviously, we only have the capacity to lend the money. So we will give the loan to those company basically who are working in the solar power, electric vehicle. So that will be contribution towards the climate change. Okay, so in this way, that is called as the green finance. That is called as the green finance. Okay, the Financial Service Task Force (SFTF), Financial Services Task Force of Sustainable Markets Initiative suggest a strategy for banking sector. Okay, so now who will suggest the strategy to the bank for the climate change? So remember, the FSTF, called as the Financial Services Task Force of a Sustainable Market Initiative, suggests the strategy to the banking sector. Now see, what are the strategy? SFTF have suggested some strategy. What are the strategy? See, benchmarking the definition of sustainable financing for a further investment, undertaking the scenario analysis, assessing the risk opportunity in the sustainable financing. So basically three things are important. You should define clearly what is sustainable financing in the banking. There should be a scenario analysis and what is the risk and what are the opportunity to finance the project in the sustainable financing. So these are the three main suggestions given by the SFTF. Okay, FSTF, Financial Services Task Force. Now see, green finance for sustainable development. What is green finance? Again, the rapid economic development is often achieved at the cost of the environment, right? So green finance refer to the financial arrangement that are specific to the uses. For example, solar, wind, biogas. So these are the projects where we can finance, and that is referred as the green finance. Okay, so we can say the project or the project which adopt the aspect of the climate change, these are referred as the green project, good for the green finance. Okay, so very simple. Green finance means give loans simply to solar, wind, biogas. Okay, or the institution which are in line with the goal of SDG. Okay, apart from that, the project defined sustainable under the disclosure requirement for the green debt security include. So what are the projects which are suitable for the green finance? Okay, and where it is given? It is given in the disclosure requirement for the green debt security. Okay, according to the disclosure requirement, green debt security, see, climate change adaptation, sustainable water and water management, suitable land uses, including sustainable forestry and the agriculture, biodiversity conservation. So these are some area where you can give the loan, so that will be counted in the green finance. Okay, according to the green debt security. Now new financial instrument, for example green bonds, then carbon market instrument, for example carbon tax, then new financial instrument like a green bank, new financial institution like a green bank, green fund, these are now established. Okay, so this is the way how we are moving towards the green finance. Okay, green bonds are very important, green bonds. Then carbon tax, now government is imposing more the carbon emission. Carbon includes carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, like that. Okay, chlorofluorocarbon, CFC. Okay, so these are the, I am good in chemistry. Okay, so these are the the gases which increase the global warming. Okay, so that is called as, oftenly called as the carbon, these are the compound of carbon. Now see, progress in India. Okay, what is the progress of India? See, December 2007 RBI issued the notification on the corporate social responsibility. So how we have progressed? Okay, so one by one what happened in history, that we will discuss in the progress simply. So RBI given the notification on corporate social responsibility, CSR. You know CSR? See, whatever the company generating the profit, okay, out of that 2% mandatorily it should be spent by in the CSR activity. CSR means corporate social responsibility. It include the water, providing drinking water, education. These are some things where the company must have to submit their report that you have spent it. Okay, remember that is called as corporate social responsibility. Now corporate social responsibility, sustainable development and non-financial reporting role of the bank. So this is basically notification issued. What is notification? CSR, sustainable development and non-financial reporting role of the bank. and in that it has mentioned the importance of the global warming and climate change in the context of the sustainable development. Okay, in 2008 the National Action Plan on the Climate Change, called as the NAPCC, was formulated. Then Climate Change Finance Unit, CCFU, sorry, this is important, remember, the CCFU, called as the Climate Change Finance Unit, was formed in 2011 within the Ministry of the Finance as a coordinating agency for green finance in the India. So remember, who will be the coordinating agency? Climate Change Finance Unit, this is the coordinating agency. This will work under the Ministry of Finance, okay, and this will be the agency for finance in the green finance in the India, okay, remember. Now SEBI has also made it mandatory that top 100 listed company based on the market capitalization, based on what? Market cap, at BSE and NSE both, right, Bombay Stock Exchange and National Stock Exchange, they are mandatory to publish the annual business responsibility report, okay, they have to publish the annual business responsibility report, okay, only top 100 market cap companies according to the SEBI orders. Now Government of India offer 30% of the installation cost of the rooftop solar panel as a subsidy. So see how we are progressing towards the climate change, okay. So what we have done, government has offered the subsidy, okay, 30% subsidy government has offered on installation of the solar panels, okay. Also beneficiary can avail the generation based incentive, wherein they can receive rupees 2 per unit of a generation if the generation exceeds 1100 kilowatt hour and 1500 kilowatt hour. If the generation is more than 1100 to 1500 kilowatt hour per year, then you will get 2 rupees per unit for the production, okay. So this is generally, you can say, for commercial purpose, but you at least remember, we offer the, that is government offer the 30% subsidy on the solar panels. Apart from that, Government of India has launched the faster adaptation and manufacturing of the hybrid and the electric vehicles, that is called as the FAME. So remember the full form. What is FAME? FAME stands for faster adaptation of and manufacturing of a hybrid electric vehicles, okay. So faster adaptation and manufacturing of hybrid and electric vehicles, that is stands for FAME. Remember, FAME stands for faster adaptation and manufacturing of a hybrid as well as the electric vehicles, that is a FAME. That scheme basically launched in 2015 and 2019, and according to that scheme, government will give some subsidy for purchasing and sales of basically the electric vehicles, okay, that are basically electric vehicle means they are hybrid or fully electric, okay. So remember, FAME stands for faster adaptation and manufacturing of a hybrid and electric vehicles. So the scheme was launched in 2015, extended till 2019, okay. For what? For the purpose of electric vehicle, called as the green vehicle production on the sales. Subsidy, basically subsidy government is giving, different state is also giving, right. Now see, the State Bank of India, SBI, has introduced the green car loan. What is the green car loan? Basically this is the loan for the electric vehicles or electric cars. If you are purchasing, you will get it, okay. What is benefit? The interest rate will be less than 20 basis point. Remember, what is 20 basis point? So 20 basis point here will be less than 0.2%. For example, if the rate of interest for my petrol car is say 7%, so I will get here 6.8 only, okay. In case of if I am purchasing the green car, for example Nexon EV, okay. And what will be repayment period? They are offering the longer repayment for the electric vehicle. So in this way we are progressing, right. Now different bank has also implemented the different schemes, okay. Now see, the government production linked incentive, that is a PLI, production linked incentive scheme for manufacturing in renewable energy is also applicable. What is a PLI? See, with respect to 2019 production of the company, you have to increase that production, okay. And if you increase the production, you will be getting the incentive, okay. That will range from 2 to 6% per year, depending on the how much you are increasing per year, okay. So this is the production linked incentive scheme by the government. We have already learned that scheme in the previous chapters. Now this is also applicable in the renewable energy, so that is one step towards the climate change. Now small renewable energy sector include priority sector lending, firm renewable energy sector which are eligible loan up to 30 CR. See, giving loan to the renewable energy, these are now the part of a priority sector. Priority sector means these are the sector which should be given some priority while giving some loan. This is the RBI guideline, and renewable energy is included in that priority sector. Okay, and according to the guideline, up to 30 CR loan should be given to the renewable energy. Okay, and that can be counted in the priority sector. Okay, now India announced a target to reach 450 gigawatt of the renewable energy generation by 2030. So this is the target by 2030. Now, what is the progress and the climate and the challenges of a green finance in India? So, what is the green lending and the green bonds we have in the India? See, green lending means the RBI included the small renewable energy sector under this category. Okay, under this category by the way of a priority sector lending inclusion scheme 2015. So, what we have just discussed that now renewable energy, especially small renewable energy that are included in the priority sector by RBI in the scheme called Priority Sector Lending Scheme 2015. As March 2020, as on March 2020, the outstanding credit to the non-conventional energy sector was 7.9% of what? Of the total power generation outstanding. Okay, and compared to 5.4% in March 15. So how we have increased? See, due to this scheme, due to the priority lending, whatever the loan outstanding means remaining loan, whatever the loan we have given to non-conventional energy, it was 7.9%. Okay, with respect to it was only 5.4% in 2015, but in 2020 it was 7.9%. So our total loan we have given for the power generation, out of that for the non-conventional energy it was 7.9% in 2020. Okay, now if we look in the history in 2015, it was only 5.4%. So that means we have increased from 5.4% to 7.9% between the 5 years. Okay, easy. Now what are the green bonds? See, green bonds are the bonds issued by the sovereign entity. Basically, sovereign means if the any bond, basically green bonds are simply, you remember, it is government bond. Okay, the India started issuing the green bond since 2015. As of February 2020, the outstanding of the green bond is 0.7% of the all bonds. So it is somehow we can say the step towards the challenge in the green finance. It is step towards the green financing. So the amount is less, the percentage is less, but it's still it is good. Okay, so 0.7% of a total bond in India are the green bond, remember. Okay, so if we talk about the green bond, we are having 0.7% of all bond are the green bond in India, and having their maturity from 5 to 10 years generally. Okay, 76% of the green bonds issued in the India in 2015 were denominated generally in the US dollar. Okay, so the demand for the green bond is more in the US dollar. You can remember that also. Okay, and around 76% were in the US dollar currency. Okay, so this is all about the green lending and green bond. Now the important part is CSR. What is CSR? CSR stands for Corporate Social Responsibility. It is important and interesting. See, section 135 of the Company Act 2013 provide legal support for the CSR in India. So see, section 135, there is one section called 135 section in the Companies Act 2013, and this gives the detail about the CSR. Okay, CSR is a corporate social responsibility. Now schedule 8 of the same provide overall direction how to manage, how to these are basically for the CSR effort. Okay, so remember section 135 plus you have to remember schedule 8, schedule 7, VII, schedule 7. Okay, now see, CSR schedule 7 of the Company Act attempt to eliminate the hunger, poverty and malnutrition, promote the healthcare, then preventive healthcare and sanitation facility by contributing to the central government's Swachh Bharat Kosh program. So how you can fulfill your CSR target? How company can fulfill CSR target? Schedule 7 says you can contribute to Swachh Bharat Kosh program, where basically you can go and donate. Okay, so that will be counted in the CSR. Now SDG, such as no poverty, we are having SDG, right? 17 SDG. Out of that, no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, then clean water and sanitation. These SDG are built into the CSR activity in the India. Okay, in India, company can spend more than mandated 2%. Okay, so remember what is target? The target is 2%. See, whatever the profit, see here 2% of their profit. Okay, see, whatever the profit, see, for example, if 100 CR is the profit of a company or a bank, then 2 CR they have to mandatory spend for the CSR activity. CSR means corporate social responsibility, right? That mandatorily need to send. Okay, this is important. Okay, what is mandatory? 2% is mandatory. But if companies spend more than 2%, it is welcome, right? And that will be if the CSR in any year exceeds the amount spent, can be set up for CSR in future years. In the future years, that means if you spend 3%, that okay, so that 1% will be eligible to count for the next year also. Okay, so that can be set off in the future year. No limit that you can spend 2% only, it is mandatory, but whatever the more you spend, that we can set off in the next year's target. Okay, now see, in July 2019, government amended the non-compliance of the CSR is a criminal offense. So see, this is very big step. In 2019, government amended the act, and it is a criminal offense, violation of a CSR, non-implementation of a CSR, and they are keep the penalty. They have kept 1 CR for the company. If you are not violating if you are violating the CSR, there will be 1 CR of the fine to the company and 2 lakh for each defaulting officer. So who is the concerning officer? For each officer, 2 lakh rupees fine. Apart from that, there will be 3 years of a jail, imprisonment of the 3.5 years, 3 years of the imprisonment for defaulting officers also. Now that has been now removed, that imprisonment. Okay, that is now removed. Okay, so you remember the what is the strict action government has taken. If the company failed to comply with the CSR activity, it is counted as a criminal offense in 2019, having 1 CR fine on the company and 2 lakh rupees fine on the every defaulting officer. Apart from that, there was a 3 years jail to the defaulting officer also. So that was a very big step. Later on, government realized that that will be very high. Okay, so government has changed from criminal offense to civil offense. That is civil wrong. So don't worry, we will not put you into jail, but we will keep the penalty. Okay, so 1 crore fine to the company, and also 2 lakh rupees fine to each officer. Okay, so this fine is continue, but now remember, violation of the CSR is now, it is a civil offense, it is not a criminal offense. That means the company violates CSR, the company's officer will not go into jail, they only have to pay the penalty. Okay, so remember, okay, that is the change. Now we'll learn what is the summary that we have discussed in the session. In September 2015, United Nations General Assembly given the SDG to the world, and 169 targets, okay, that have to achieve by 2030, by next 15 years. Apart from that, long-term changes in the temperature and the weather is nothing but the climate change. Then sustainable development goal 13 is important. You talk about the climate action. Okay, it is one of the important goal out of 17 SDG. Then global issue highlighted by the United Nations include different, for example, democracy, education, human rights, gender equality, etc., etc. Apart from that, in 2019, the India's total SDG score has increased from 60 to 66 in 2021, owing improvement in the clean water sanitation and affordable clean energy respectively. Kerala ranked first in the index by the Niti Aayog on SDG, followed by Himachal Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Andhra and Goa. The Indian government is firmly committed to 2030 agenda. The many of the initiative include Swachh Bharat, Make in India. These are key to SDG. India has pledged to achieve the net zero emission by 2030 in the COP26 summit in Glasgow. COP26 in the same meeting, India has announced a One Sun, One World, One Grid OSOW scheme for the solar energy. The Section 135 of the Company Act provide legal support to the CSR in India. Schedule 7 of the Company Act 2013 again provide direction how to implement the CSR. The several SDG are associated with the Schedule 7 activity of the Companies Act. The CSR is nothing but the corporate social responsibility. Schedule 7 of the Companies Act attempt to eliminate the hunger, poverty and malnutrition. The Indian banking industry has also a key role in the climate change by funding the energy transitions. Non-compliance with the CSR is now a civil offense. It is not a criminal offense. The penalty for violation of a CSR is 1 CR for the company and 2 lakh for the each defaulting officer, which is now changed in 2020. Now see some questions, how questions can be asked. Which section of the Companies Act 2013 provide legal support to CSR? We discussed is section 135, which provide legal support for the CSR in India. The World Bank estimate climate change is likely to lower India's GDP. According to World Bank estimates, 2.8% of GDP per year will be declining due to the climate change in India. Which of the Indian state led SDG Index 2021 prepared by the NITI Aayog? We know that Kerala has topped in the index prepared by the NITI Aayog based on the SDG. In 2021, India aimed to achieve the target of net zero emission by which year? So by 2070, India is going to achieve the zero net emissions. To limit the global warming to 1.5 degrees centigrade, the scientists recommended that 2030 global emissions should be cut by compared to 2010 levels. So we learn to limit the global warming to 1.5 degrees centigrade. Scientist has recommended that we should cut down the uses by 45%. Okay, we should reduce the emission, basically by 45% as compared to the base of 2010. Okay, so answer will be 45%. So these are the ways how which we should study. So we'll continue our discussion. Meanwhile, you can subscribe our YouTube channel. You can download the application from Play Store. Bankers Zone JAIIB link is given in the description. Also important note you have to do that there is a Telegram group for discussion. Bankers Zone JAIIB. You can directly search on the Telegram. Otherwise, you can directly search @ CAIIBBZ. Happy learning.